name is Apostolos Kritikos, and I'd like to thank a lot the organizing committee of WordCamp Athens for the invitation in the event of 2017. Actually, we sent what we were going to speak about, and they thought it was cool and they invited us, but nevertheless, it's an invitation. Thank you very much for that. So, it's okay, I'll do it with the arrows if you... Okay. So, I myself am a user of WordPress since 2007, and along with my partner, Angelos Nodakis, which is in the audience, alongside with other members of our team, we are using WordPress and WooCommerce professionally since 2011. I mean, making money out of it. So we thought it was cool to share some experiences we had with you here in this annual conference in Athens. And before I start, I'd like to, oh, thank you very much. Before I start, I'd like to tell you something I believe about the WordPress community. I think it's a great community. We should support it when, how, and as strong as we can. And in order to go along with what I'm saying, I believe that if WordPress and WooCommerce are the service, and we can consider ourselves being the users of this service, either as developers or as users, today in this conference we interact with this service throughout the WordCamp organizers and volunteers which are in this room. So how do you say that we give them a big applaud for getting this thing together for us so that we can enjoy it with little cost and super cool presentations. Let's have it. So let's meet. Which of you were here to the presentation of Mr. Loki? Okay. Mrs. Hutty, the previous one, the previous presentation. Okay. Which of you are developers? Okay. Which of you are non-technical people? Excellent. Which of you have used WooCommerce as users for their shop, for example? Okay. And which of you have used WooCommerce as developers? Excellent. So we have everything. Okay. My presentation is going to be about ERPs, Greek ERPs specifically, and how they are integrated with WooCommerce. It's something that we tried to do in my company, Social Mind, the previous year. And we tried with two, although we had the chance to explore some more. I'll say some things about the other integrations, but we will focus in two for this presentation. So today we're going to talk, as I said, about WordPress and WooCommerce, about ERPs, APIs, and why they are good for our lives, and a bit about the powers that WooCommerce and WordPress give us to superpower our stores and our e-commerce solutions. So previous speakers as well pinpointed why WordPress and WooCommerce are very cool tools to use as developers to provide our customers with great solutions. Some of the biggest advantages are in this slide, in my opinion at least. They're open source, they have a great community to support them and use them. They have plenty of plugins, REST APIs, documentation. There is a particular one that I like. It's the future-proof, the red in the last line. And I say future-proof because the future of WordPress and WooCommerce isn't actually something that we can predict that's going to be forever for 5 years, for 3 years, or it's going to die tomorrow, because it's mainly up to the community that makes it grow to decide for how long it's going to be working out there. So, a little things about it. Which of you know what an ERP system is? Okay, so we won't stay long here. It's software systems that perform many business processes for businesses, companies, small or large, such as the ones in the list. For example, product planning, purchase, storage management, sales, orders, clients, and stuff like that. The real thing we should be talking about, though, is why would somebody who has an eShop would like to integrate their eShop with a solution, with an ERP solution. So in the following slides, we have the 4 or 5 main reasons for that. One of them is that we need one data storage to have all our information. So what's happening in Greece these days is that usually we have companies that are selling things in physical stores, and until today they didn't have an eShop. Some of them had an ERP solution, and some of them didn't have an eShop or an ERP solution altogether. So the time came where the physical store owners wanted to use the online channels to sell more of their products, so they created eShops. And this last year in 2017, we've seen many clients coming to us and say, okay, I do have an ERP now. Can I integrate it with my eShop? Why do they want to do that? One, to keep their storage in sync with what's happening with their eShop. This means that when a product is being sold from the eShop, the storage in the ERP should also sync and have the updated amount of products available for further sales in their storage, physical storage, of course. If they sell something from one of or more of their physical stores, again, the eShop, their online store, as we say, should also have the updated amount of products still can be sold. Also, in Greece, as many all of you know, the bureaucracy is huge, and so there are strict laws and procedures on how we charge, and then we get receipts and invoices for what we sell. These things should also be in sync when they are sold physically or from an online store. And this particular thing is a huge pain, because especially when a store supports wholesale and retail sales, we have to do a special treatment for those invoices versus the receipts. And last but not least, the thing that pains the sellers the most is the overselling danger. Do you know what overselling is for a customer? Which of you know it? Hands? Okay. So overselling is trying to sell something that doesn't exist in my storage, but my user online sees that it is available. Let me give you an example. Let's say that my store has a physical store that sells things and an online, an eShop. I have two items of a specific product to my storage. At the same time, two people are coming to my store requesting this product, and there is an online user that also is interested to buy this product. What's going to happen is if my eShop doesn't sync very frequently with my ERP, my online user might see the product still available. However, the two buyers in my storage might have already bought the two remaining products. So I'm selling a product to the online user, but it's not really there. It's just that that my eShop hasn't synced with my ERP system. So it's still available, although it's not. Okay, having established this base of discussion for why an ERP is important for the ESOP owners, let's talk about two different integrations that we had to do with two different Greek ERPs. I'm more interested in showing you the infrastructural problem, so I'm not going to say which ERPs are, but any one of you that wants more details, we can discuss it in person outside after the talk. After all, it's coffee time, I think. So the one solution didn't offer an API, so we have an ERP that doesn't offer an API. How many of you think it was super easy to integrate the solution with an ESOP, with WooCommerce? I suppose you don't raise hands because you think it wasn't easy. Yeah. So in this specific solution, this specific ERP, I mean, we had an infrastructure like this. So we have the ERP on our left and the WooCommerce on our right. And what's happening is, in order to sync the two databases together, we need to have a set of identical tables in the databases that are exchanging information between them, and then the databases are reading from those intermediate tables. So what we had to do was, on the side of the ERP, a set of intermediate tables were created by the ERP company, of course, and they were cloning the information on the database in the side of the ERP. At the same time, we had to create a set of those tables on our side, the WooCommerce side, and of course there were tables that were not, we couldn't use the WooCommerce tables because their structure was different. And then, after we implemented that, what we have to do was to read from those intermediate tables and, of course, wait for the ERP to write inside them. Okay? Okay, let's think about some pros about this solution. Let's talk about some cons. First of all, we have waste of resources because we're duplicating and quadruplicating the infrastructure just to be able to sync to databases, which of course over an API wouldn't be that hard to do. And especially because WooCommerce has and WordPress have a REST API, that makes the specific tools a very good candidate for a developer to create a viable e-commerce solution that can be integrated. We saw it to a previous presentation with anything that also has an API. We're going to discuss about that in a while. Waste of resources, as I guess you understand, leads to delays. If you remember the graph, the diagram, we have 3 times in order for the transaction to go from one way to another, and then the same times for it to go back. We have a long learning curve. As a developer, I would rather not understand the infrastructure of the thing I'm integrating, because my main purpose is to use it as a tool, as a third-party component, to create a customized solution for a tailor-made solution for my client. But since I have to duplicate part of the infrastructure just to be able to communicate with that, we had to go deep in the solution of the ERP provider and understand why it's built the way it's built and how we're going to minimize our effort in order to make something that can bridge the two solutions. Last but not least, cron jobs become sync scenarios. And what we mean with that is that since we're talking about an ESOP database, we have lots of information that need to be synced. If we go back a couple of slides, we're going to remember that what we need to sync are orders, new customers that are coming from this ESOP that should be also replicated to our ERP solution, products, stock amounts, and stuff like that. We can't, with this infrastructure at least, we cannot synchronize the whole database every 2 or 3 seconds. Why? Because we are not sure that the ERP can duplicate itself to our intermediate tables so often. And as the reality showed, it can't. End up doing support for the ERP solution. Do you know what's happening when something is not working and it's not your fault? The customer is going to call you because you are the one with whom he's speaking, and you are the one who said to him, we're going to integrate it into things to do the job for you. So we had to call them back and ask them, why are these things are not working as they're supposed to? Hear their solution, try to wait for them to implement it, and then implement our bug fix as an aftermath of their solution. Solution is not infrastructure agnostic. Okay, so let's say that our database in WooCommerce is MySQL, and the ERP's database is MS SQL. Although this is not a bad thing, it shouldn't be a bad thing, still we have to take information directly from our database and migrate it to another infrastructure, and as the experience showed, this could lead to strange things, especially when we're talking about Greek text. Cron job orchestration needed. So what we ended up doing with this solution is micromanagement the cron jobs, and I mean literally, there was a person that was micromanaging them, in order to find the optimal solution with the little time possible to integrate the two things. And we ended up doing something which is not very good in development in general. Try and guess what's the best thing to sync in which time. So we moved on with the second integration after a while for another client, of course, which had an API. And things went well. So, of course, not everything was solved from us magically, but it was pretty easier because now we could request something from the ERP, and we were getting something that we could read, or try at least to read. So if we wanted to update the previous diagram, we have this one where things are pretty easier. We have the ERP on the left, we have WooCommerce on the right, and we just need those two things to talk over an API. Okay. Pros and cons. What's not working for a solution that doesn't provide an API is a pro for a solution that provides an API. I'm not going to tell them again because you can get the picture. So getting to the bottom of that, I'd like to share with you some thoughts about why we had to take this long journey to end up implementing two different solutions with WooCommerce. At least why I think we had to go there. First of all, we found out that, let me start again. Can anybody of you imagine a reason why the first solution didn't have an API? Were they just bad coders or there's something else? Ideas? custom made. Okay. Both of them are good answers. Of course, the second is more near to the reality. But there's another reason. Yes? Exactly. The thing is that what we got was legacy code. It was legacy code. This implementation was built many years ago when there weren't ESOPs in the Greek market, and there wasn't a need for Greek ESOPs in the market. So nobody could see the need to create an API, since all the jobs that the ERP had to do was internally to the ESOP itself, to the ERP solution itself. So when at some point somebody said, okay, I need the data to integrate them with another solution, there was no bridge for that. And the only thing that they could do is either allow us to use a solution like the one I showed you, or, which would be even worse, let me hit their database directly. And I'm saying that because it's the solution that another ERP gave us when we discussed with them. It's okay, we can give you access to our database and do a request directly to it. So, in order for us as a software house to design quality code, this taught us a lesson, and the lesson is be aware who is going to use your code in the future. If it's going to be infrastructure for your company, you could not use an API, although I personally think that an API never hurt anyone. And you can do it either open source, for example, extending WooCommerce or WordPress if you have to. It could be inner source. How many of you know the term inner source? Okay, inner source is a new thing that's stepping between open and closed source, and it is parts of the code, which could be closed or open, are open to an organization or a community, but not outside that. So what the pros and the cons of using a legacy code versus a legacy code dependent system? So first of all, it has a great effect on the documentation. The fact that the first solution had no API was accompanied by the fact that when we tried to integrate, there wasn't a structured documentation to tell us how to do that. Instead, we were continuously on the phone with the tech support of the ERP solution, telling them ideas that we had and responding, and they were responding to us with their ideas. And at some point, we found some common ground to be able to work. There is no clear new features roadmap. So if, for example, I want a new feature to extend my WooCommerce solution for my client, and it has to be connected with ERP, if I call them and tell the ERP tech support, can I do that? They're going to tell me, let us think about it, and we'll announce it to the next release of our update. Bug fix roadmap. I'm sending something that doesn't work as I want, or even worse, it's working, but it could be way faster if we have implemented it in a different way. They cannot tell me when this is going to be ready. And integration adaptability. Because I don't have control over the software I'm trying to integrate my solution with, I cannot make the right extensions to update it to do so. And third, the fact that those solutions were in total, I mean all the ERPs that we're talking are proprietary software. So when you have to deal with proprietary software, I'm not very fanatic about open source, meaning that every closed source solution is the devil and we should kill the one that's maintaining it. But it should at least provide us with a way of being able to get the data without interfering with the business logic behind the ERP solution and do whatever we want with them. Proprietary solutions usually, if they don't have an API, they don't allow you to do that, because once you're in their system, you can do stuff. And this is getting messy at some point. Also, there are all the other things that we said. Code is a black box. We cannot, I know that doesn't work, but I can't find out why. Support is paid and on demand, so if I want to fix for my client has usually to pay them to make this fix, and they might return a cost to him that he cannot afford. So this gives me a hard way of making my solution better. There's no community, so I couldn't ask, for example, on Stack Overflow or a WordPress forum, I have this problem, can you help me with that? But I had to call someone, and he would say to me, let me check and I'll get back to you in a month. And contract precedes integration. So if I want to promise new features to my clients, I have to also give them a price for that. And the price is going to be dependent on the price of the people behind the ERP solution. Okay, this might not be known to the non-Greek people here, but I see people already laughing, so I guess you found out. So there's a bit more in my presentation, and I have 5 minutes left, so I guess it's going to be okay. So when I proposed the presentation, it was only 2 integrations, but from that time to now, there's a third one that we're trying to do, and it's worse than the other 2. So, say "oh" if you're sympathizing with me. Okay, so our new challenge is this. We have 2 databases and we need to sync them through Excel files. If you want to try it with us, find me outside and pitch me your idea. I'd be glad to implement it. Thank you very much. I guess questions? Thank you. By the way, 3 persons of this picture, one is me, are in the space. You can find them and ask them cool things.
Hey.
Yes.
Question, why would you integrate between 2 databases using Excel files? Can't you use something like CSV or JSON or something more humane?
Yeah, sure. But the client came and said, we have this ERP solution, and we need to integrate our WooCommerce store with this. And I said, okay, I'll call them and ask them how we're going to do that. And the guy told me that, yeah, we're going to give you Excel templates, you're going to fill them for us, and then we will update the database with them. And it was the only way, so I guess I have to do it. Or not take the job. It's up to us. But the thing is, and I think let's use the question to elaborate some more. The thing is that because the ERP solutions that are on market at this time that we're talking were designed in different periods of time and with different needs and characteristics in mind, and therefore there's no common ground in terms of development structure integration. And that's why some people are using mediation tables in databases, other people are using still the file system. and others have moved on and are turning to APIs. The great thing that happened was that the first solution reported that within the first quarter of 2018 they were building an API. But you can all imagine what that means for us. We have to rebuild the whole system to work with an API now. If he understands that he needs to pay for the second integration. This is always a tricky one for the sales, but we'll try. Another question, maybe? It's coffee break, so do one, or two, or four, or five.
Hi.
Hello.
What methodology you are using to sync your MySQL to SQL or SQL to MySQL?
You mean from MySQL to SQL Server?
Yeah, which one you
databases?
tried? Which one you're using?
To integrate, just so to be sure that I understood the question correctly. You mean what methodology we use to sync two different types of databases,
Yes.
one with the other?
Yes.
Okay. Because the problem is not the databases to start with. It's the fact that the data should pass from the one database to tables with the exact structure of the first database and then to the other. So whatever solution I do, I have to recreate the tables to my environment. Let's say this is MySQL or could be anything else, and copy the data and the fields from the first database. And then I can read the data. So the methodology, at least in my mind, until today we're speaking, doesn't matter, unless you have a good suggestion about it.
Yeah, I done it by using the MySQL drivers on SQL Server.
Okay.
I was asking if you have something different.
No, we also passed the information from the mediation tables from one infrastructure to the other, and then we updated the other system. We couldn't find a smarter way to do it.
Okay, thank you.
Hello.
Hello.
Have you ever done ERP integration when you need to manage a two-way data handling? Like, for example, if client has products in their ERP systems and they want to transfer it to the e-commerce, that is okay. That is one way. But if they just want, but if they also want to enter products in their WooCommerce or e-commerce system, that should also be visible in ERP or transfer to ERP. How do you handle that, or did you ever work on that? Thanks.
The question is if it was a bidirectional thing.
Yeah.
And something more, or just that?
No, just that.
Yeah, we implemented the thing two-way. So, okay, in the API scenario, I guess it's pretty much clear. So let's go to fast rewind. So as you see, let's have it for our great sponsors. Okay, so back from the small intermission, we have two-way arrows. So we implemented both ways, and want to know how, or it's really simple because, okay, is this a pointer? Center, okay. So what you're doing is, whatever database this is, you choose the tables that you're interested for, let's say clients, orders, and products. You make a copy with the identical structure of the original database. Okay. And this is in the same DBMS as the database itself. So if this is my MS SQL, this is MS SQL as well. Then you create a code that synchronizes those intermediate tables with those intermediate tables that they are in the DBMS that your ESOP has, for, in our case, WooCommerce. The reason you need those tables is that you can't use the ones that you have in the WooCommerce itself, because they need to be identical to those in order for the two intermediate data tables to clone the data from the other type. And this is happening because the specific ERP solution doesn't let you to read from there. It needs to write the data on your side. So that's why we needed the two sets of the intermediate tables. Other questions? Yes?
Hi. If you have like a task to do an integration with a two legacy system, let's say, can you just export the data out with your own way, like JSON, XML, and whatever, and just assign this task to the legacy system owner, which is like the most appropriate person for this job?
So what you're saying is I build the template on how I want the data to come to me, and then I tell them fix it.
Not in that manner.
Okay.
Like export the data, say this is the WooCommerce API, this is the way that you can retrieve the data, this is the way that you can interact with the data, and it's too expensive for us to work with a legacy system and spend hours on the phone and email.
Yeah, they're gonna say that we hear you. It's gonna happen like third quarter of next year, and in the meantime, your customer says, "Okay, maybe some other time," or something like that. So, but the usual case is that those ERP systems, because they are legacy systems, they have found a way, not a good one, but they have found a way to provide you with the data. They say to you, "You're going to charge for the integration. Charge whatever you must, and do it this way. Otherwise, we'll have to do it, and we are going to charge your client eventually." So it's more or less the same thing in the end, the same money going to be paid. Yes?
Hello.
Hello.
Can you explain in short the business decision to take the first job? I mean, you realize that it's going to be hard work to do it, but maybe you thought that you can use this solution again and again with this kind of ERP. Was it based on that, or was it something else?
Excellent question, and I promise I didn't pay him to do it. So what we're trying to do in Social Mind is we're trying to create, as we call it, a 360 degree of services around digital marketing. And a part of digital marketing is selling online. Because we have a strong background in programming and using WordPress and WooCommerce, as I said earlier, we thought that it would be good to be able to automate the process of syncing the storage, the physical storage of a shop with their online systems in order for them not to have to pay someone to actually do a duplicate job entering orders both in the shop and the ERP or vice versa. So the main reason was that, and still is, that we're trying to provide a component on our infrastructure that a user in the future could choose their ERP and have maybe not the perfect, but a very good solution on singular products. But after the experience with the first solution, we think that the quality of the integration in the first case and the case which there is an API are definitely have a very great distance between them in terms of quality and performance and stuff like that.
Okay, thank you.
I see at least 5. So I'm here, I'm available. Which one?
It's me.
Oh,
hi. Thanks a lot for your presentation.
Thank you.
I just have a question about future implementations. supposedly that, first of all, I am aware of all the problems and restrictions of dealing with ERP technicians and stuff, so I can relate with you guys.
Let's have a beer afterwards.
Yeah, and cry over it.
Yeah.
I just want to say, in the future, like if supposedly we had full liberty to implement our connections, in your professional opinion and experience, would you say that a connection would be better to be reactive, or to be able to accept connections and deal with stuff internally, or it should be reactive, like sending information to the ERP and let the ERP handle it? I mean, if you could do it in all-in-one solution.
Well, you're trying to generalize, and it's a very good thing. We
Yeah.
try to do it as well. If we don't have an API available, we have to do something specific for the solutions that they don't have. One idea is to tailor-made every solution. Another idea is to persuade them, like we did with our first case, to turn the thing around to an API. The third idea that I thought about, but I don't think it's viable, is to persuade them to pay me to make the API for them.
Okay.
If you know someone with an ERP that wants an API, let me know.
Okay.
There's another technology out there, but we're just looking at it at this time, which is called the Enterprise Service Bus. Which of you have heard about it? Yeah. This technology says something different. We have systems all around, and we are using a central bus of messages that those systems are willingly giving, and then there is a main component that reads the messages and decides which of them need to be scheduled and interacted with. But this also has the problem that we don't know every solution out there, the infrastructure behind it. So we can't be sure that this is going to in general solve the problem. We're looking for it, but we're not there. I guess this is the short answer. Yes?
Hi.
Hello.
Thanks for the information and
Thank you.
presentation. I would like to ask what happens when you have more than one languages on the website or in the e-shop, let's say Greek and English.
Can you say it one more time, because I lost something?
What happens when you have more than one languages on the website, let's say Greek and English, and how?
Okay. So what's happening is that in general, the ERPs are keeping the information uniquely. So the multilingual thing is going to happen in the eShop. The ERP doesn't have a need to have multiple languages unless they have implemented some SEO features, for example, for the descriptions or the titles of the products. But in our opinion, this is handling one way. I mean, we are getting all the data from the ERP, and then we can replicate to our side, to the eShop side, and deal with the multilingual content. Or we can map the version, the language that exists in the ERP side, let's say it's the Greek one, with the translation that is offered in our WooCommerce solution. Let's say if we're using the WPML package, this could be the translations of a specific product or of a specific feature of a product.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Hi. Hello.
You can make them stop. But you will, I'm afraid. Yeah, where are you? Where am I looking? Oh, hi.
Hi. How do you manage to make a proper cost estimate? Meaning that you're dealing with an ERP with a closed system, with a black box that you don't know exactly how it works. So how do you manage to give a proper quote to your client?
Okay, this is always a tricky one, but it's not only with integration within ERP. It's generally when, as Mariana was saying in the previous presentation, when somebody comes and ask you to do a tailor-made solution or an extension of the WooCommerce that doesn't exist out there as a component out of the shelf or something. It's difficult, but what we try to do when we're dealing with this kind of questions, we're trying to establish a basic set of features that we think they're solving the problem, put a price on them as if we were going to build them on our own, starting from scratch, for example, and then based on the information that the vendor gives us. For example, I have an API and it is accompanied with documentation. Or I don't have an API, but you're going to tell me what you need and I'm going to give them to you in a JSON format, for example, like another friend proposed. Based on their answer on how we're going to get our data and how easy this is going to be, we try to put a price on that. The truth is that in the end, when you are exploring unknown territories, you usually sacrifice a fraction of your price in order to gain the knowledge that you afterwards have to support better this solution. It's a risk. It's like buying Bitcoins 5 years ago. Let's say, something like that. Do it.
Hi.
Multi-currency, yes. Haven't dealt with that yet. We're still supporting Greek customers. Only Bitcoins, nothing else.
Hi. Up here, straightforward.
I can see you, but I feel you.
Raising hands.
Okay.
First of all, congrats on your presentation, and my hat's off with your patience with all these legacy code.
Thank you. Let's have a beer.
2 beers.
Okay.
Small question related to the previous one. Okay. When you deal with legacy ERP systems, and you have the client in front of you that says they have an old one, and I want you to connect it with my shop, do you propose him to make some alterations to the ERP, or even change it or upgrade it before you take the job, or you just say yes and move on to walk on the mountain with a cross on your back and do the job yourself?
Very good question. When we started this thing, our intention was to find a good vendor with an ERP and stick with them, and, for example, sell their solution as part of our package. But what happened on the way is that it turns out that when a company uses an ERP system, the amount of money and time they spend to set up their whole storage and orders and everything to support this ERP is a cost they cannot pay again. So saying them that you need to come to this ERP in order for you to have an integration with your WooCommerce eShop immediately is adding to them a cost that they have first of all already paid once, and also they're going to delay their eShop creation, and therefore they're losing money. Now, if the customer is already in another type of an eShop, let's say, for example, OpenCart or something else, and he's changing that, if you ask him to change the ERP as well, I don't think this is going to end well for either one of us. Okay. So I guess we need to make integrations per request if we want to solve the problem horizontally. And I think this is my cue. Thanks again for everything. Let's talk outside.